making these calls and you connected with people, was there, once you kind of got them into the rhythm of taking the survey and you were collecting research, did you feel a sense of relief from them? Like they almost could vet, or they almost could prevent, I'm sorry, they were venting and like, someone's listening to me.
Oh yeah, there were definitely some good vent sessions, you know. I'm a marketer, I hear you, I understand you, I feel what you're going through. Good.
Right, so welcome to Fresh Insights from Fresh Faces, the show for senior living sales and marketing leaders. Thank you for joining us today. And today, we're excited to be joined by Brett Benko, and as always with Phil Smith. So what's our purpose here? Our purpose here at FIFF is that we are contributing to the industry dialogue, right? So we're committed to raising the bar through education and best practices in digital marketing. And to that end, we've done a lot. We've done a lot. We've really tried to understand and publish insights and information that are useful to our audience here at Fresh Insights from Fresh Faces. And we just came off of publishing the 2018 Senior Living Marketing Guide. And in addition to this guide, and we're going to get a little bit into the guide today, but we also publish on a consistent basis to the blog. And that's why Brett is joining us today. So Brett is a name you might know, but a face you might not know. And even his picture on the blog is somewhat deceiving because that was, what, a couple years ago before?
Yeah, it was a fresher time, I can definitely say. But, really long process. And when we began, I think, interviewing communities late last year, around end of October, beginning of November, we didn't necessarily know exactly what the data was going to tell us and what the, final guide was going to end up looking like, So I think from, that first survey with communities to what, many of you have probably seen and read at this point is it's been a journey to get there. That's for sure.
And so here we have Phil Smith. Phil, live on the road today. Where are you dialing in from today, Phil?
Hi, guys. I'm in Indianapolis, actually. I'm getting ready to speak here at a conference. So, just always trying to contribute to the industries we're in.
Well, good. So, let's do this, right? Let's do this. So Brett and I are sitting uncomfortably close together.
Maybe uncomfortable for him.
No, we're very
friends.
Yeah. We're very good friends here. And so the goal today is, so we encourage you, if you have not seen the 2018 Marketing Leadership Guide, please check it out. Please give it a download. And we'll link it up in the show notes here today. But what's amazing, right? Phil and I have talked about this at length. We hit it during the last episode. Not only, we conducted more than 200 interviews. We set up an online survey, 10 questions, conducted 200 interviews from industry experts, practitioners, people that do this every single day. And we collected this data online and through the telephone. Brett actually made phone calls too. So not only did Brett help craft and publish the guide with his writing skills, but he also literally was on the phone talking to a lot of the respondents. And that's insight we had to share, right? So Brett has some interesting anecdotes and things he wants to share through this data collection process. And so that's the goal today. And so Brett, I guess to kick it off,
sure.
What's through this process of really just calling people somewhat out of the blue, right?
Yeah.
Somewhat out of the blue.
A lot of times they were out of the blue.
Right.
Yeah.
And just wanting their feedback. Like we had no other goal other than to collect research. What was that experience like?
I honestly, for myself personally, before I had began calling for the surveys, for the guide, I had some experience in senior living and, spoken with marketing practitioners, from every level that you could imagine. But, really throughout the whole entire process, really just understanding from a granular view at some point, and at others, depending on who I was speaking with, it could be an eagle-eyed view, but just the challenges that I heard, articulated over the phone, a lot of times were pretty common, despite, some communities having, being a single site, up to multi-location, multi-state organizations, and so that was one thing that kind of rang true to me, is that, sales and marketing leaders, regardless of community size, are facing a lot of challenges, and sometimes they're uphill battles. Other times, it's just mere tweaks to current strategies that they have going on. But there's no one that's necessarily, that confident or safe in today's competitive landscape.
And you raise a good question. So everyone has unique challenges, but what we found, I think, is that these feel unique, but the community at large, it's common. Like everyone has common challenges. I mean, Phil, you speak to industry leaders every single day. Do you find that they all, even though there are individual twists and individual elements, say at the local market level, that big challenges are fairly common?
Yep, and that's exactly what I was going to say. Is everybody's looking for move-in ready leads? Everybody's looking for needs help from an HR standpoint. I mean, everybody has some of those common challenges across the industry. Now, at the local level, they are very unique in kind of finding the resident that fits your community. That's a great fit for both the current residents and themselves. That's where a lot of those unique challenges come in. But I think, from a top level, we're all feeling the same pain.
Right, and that's good. And so, no, we're not in this alone, right? We're all in this together, right? And through shared knowledges and sharing and publishing guides like this, where we've, aggregated responses from 200 different senior living practitioners and industry leaders, we can hopefully use this to kind of move everyone forward. So, Brent, one of the key findings you found through these conversations that you had, you seem to have hit on the fact that budgets seem to be a common challenge, where key takeaway, we have a lot of people that are doing more with less. So more work, but fewer resources. How does that play? How do you handle it?
It's not easy. I can definitely say that. And there were a couple of conversations that I had that led into surveys, and those surveys themselves turned into, 20+ minute discussions, really ranging from everything like I go into work and every day I have, XYZ as an expectation, in addition to, being held to this difficult metric, which is occupancy rate. And a lot of times it's tied to marketing and sales leaders. And in fact, based on our pretty large sample size of over 200 respondents, 70% of those respondents said that, from a marketing and sales perspective, the occupancy rate was the criteria in which, the success or failure of their program was, held against. And
is that fair? Do you guys think that's fair?
I was going to say, I think it kind of speaks to where the senior living industry as a whole is at. We're looking to fine-tune budgets. We're looking to have, really granular insights into, it's not a matter of even moving occupancy rates, 5-10%. That's great. But, in a lot of cases, even moving that needle 0.5% makes a big difference when you're looking at the total calendar year. So I think that, it's something that every single senior living community that I spoke with, struggling. I mean, budgets are, they're not going to go away. And even for communities that,
I hope they don't go away.
You're right. I think all of us.
I think everybody is hoping their budgets stay. Well, and I think, is it fair? I'm not sure if it's fair or not, right? There's a lot of factors outside of what we do as marketers and sales leaders that really impact the space that we don't have any control over. I would say one, if the mom and pop down the street just got bought by one of the big REITs, you now have, an inherent challenge there. If somebody else is expanding, or there's a new community. So if that overall market inventory is increasing, but the demand or the penetration rates of senior living isn't, you're going to struggle to maintain and continue to build occupancy, even if you do have some of the best marketing in your local area. So I think that, I think it's just a metric that we're held to as an accountability factor from, the top up. And how can we not only communicate some of these challenges, but properly report on the metrics that really matter outside of just occupancy? What are the other things that we can help, our, sometimes as marketers, we call them the powers that be, but really help our C-suite and our executive leadership team understand the activities we're doing, the value we're driving, and the metrics they can also focus on outside of occupancy rate.
Yeah, Phil, that's a great point. What is one of those metrics that matter where occupancy might get all the attention, but if I'm a marketer and I'm, sitting here in our audience, what would you really want to focus on to help them show their success?
Yeah, I think it's really important for all of our marketers to have on-site tours for those that are in, kind of the independent living CCRC space. Those are very, very much important. Overall inquiries are important as well. Again, we don't generate the demand for our services, but we can capture it and we can capture more of it. Um, and really looking at holding our channels accountable. So how is our TV and radio doing? If we don't have any call tracking, it's already really tough, even if we have the best tracking metrics to go from, inquiry to move in and really have a match back process. That's not an easy task, but we can at least show what we're paying for those phone calls on a direct channel spend. So looking at things like, organic leads, paid leads, the cost to generate them, the cost to generate a new move-in or a new admission from each one of those channels. Again, just some of those leading indicators that help us meet our metrics of revenue or occupancy goals as a business.
Right. So the point I heard is hold all channels accountable, right? And even if you think you have a local media partner you've been working with for years, if not decades, and they're just continuing to drive a relationship that's what I would call brand centric or brand heavy, and they're really tying it back, there are ways to tie back that brand communications to very specific inquiries or move-ins, correct? So
yeah, and
Absolutely.
And speaking to the third page within the guide, where you'll see if you're kind of following along with us and going through the guide as we're speaking. But on the third page, we have this pie chart that really illustrates where marketing budgets are in 2018 as opposed to where they were in 2017. And I think speaking to what you said before, Phil, with 60% of our respondents, either their budgets were decreasing this year as opposed to 2017, or were staying the same. And when we're really looking to prove out programs and their success, less reliable traditional channels just really aren't necessarily getting communities where they need to be to meet their goals. And I think that, we address on that later in regards to some of our recommendations for communities, but concerted CRM integration, marketing automation that really helps take some of that weight off of sales teams that are expected to be doing more with less. I think we all know where, based on the percentages were with NIC or with occupancy going into 2018, and we're kind of seeing that flat, and so that's playing into where these budgets are getting allocated as well. But it's again, going back to what I said before, it's not all doom and gloom. And as that chart on the third page points to, 40% of our marketing teams are having budgets that are increasing as much as 20% this year. So there does seem to be that divide though between the haves with that are getting that ask, that are getting that approval for that additional 40%, and the have-nots that are expected to maintain similar level of occupancy with a budget that does not increase based on what challenges 2018 would bring. So
when you were making these calls and you connected with people, was there, once you kind of got them into the rhythm of taking the survey and you were collecting research, did you feel a sense of relief from them, like they almost could vet, or they almost could prevent? I'm sorry, they were venting and like, someone's listening to me.
Oh yeah, there were definitely some good vent sessions. I'm a marketer. I hear you. I understand you. I feel what you're going through. And it kind of spoke to some of my experience before in traditional, and it was tough. We worked with advertising agencies working to prove out and correlate the ROI between traditional channels and digital, and it's not impossible by any means, but a lot of teams that aren't utilizing Google Analytics and integrating their CRM, it can be a little scary. I've heard some teams, and I would ask, would you not necessarily say this verbatim, but do you kind of feel like you're flying blind to a certain degree, and There was you could hear the head nods on the other end of the call, but I definitely had a lot of teams that marketing leaders that just illuminated my understanding of just how common a lot of these day-to-day challenges are, even though they're unique challenges that are specific to their community are of course very localized. It could be a competitor down the street, or like what Phil said before, it could be a REIT moving into town, and all of a sudden that just kind of shakes up the local landscape.
Well, and the good news is we entered all the data anonymously, so even though you have specific stories you collected, all the data were input into our data collection tool and anonymously wiped out and not associated. But the good news is we are calling all the people that were so generous with their time and contributed. We're literally in the process of calling everyone back and saying, make sure you get the guide. You contributed to this. We appreciate the time you took. Here's what 199 of your peers said.
Yeah.
And we really want to make sure that you dig in, and like the chart on page 3. We have really some the 5 key takeaways. So not only did we identify budgets and occupancy issues, but then we dug into common challenges, right? Kind of, hey, everyone, we're in this together. And then the 5 key takeaways. I mean, Phil, you mentioned one of your favorite takeaways last time. Do you have kind of another favorite takeaway you're sharing, you're finding is resonating with people today?
Yeah, I think my favorite takeaway is still the same, and it's really the website as the center, because everything stems off that. Brett mentioned Google Analytics, how people are finding and using your website, interacting with your brand. Those all come from there. Your email marketing stems from there. So I just think it's a house for our published content. It's really, again, for us, very, very important to have, just a great website experience, but also understand that digital is helping us do more with less. And how can we continue to leverage the digital space to do that and better connect and better segment and, just better educate the overall senior living space is ultimately what we're looking at.
Great. Well, good. Well, we want to bring this episode on home. So we want to thank Brett for, his really interesting experience he had going through collecting the data, call by call, survey by survey. Then we spent a lot of time analyzing the information and then writing and editing. And editing was fun, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, at times. When we were close to being finished, yeah.
But we thank you for your time. We encourage you, please go into the show notes here, into this post below, and download the 2018 Marketing Leadership Guide. We hope you'll get a lot out of it. Many of your peers and industry experts contributed to this survey, and we love your feedback. So please read the guide and let us know what you think. And if you think you can enhance a point for us, do it. If you feel like we missed something, let us know, and we'll add this to the guide. And even Brett, once again, actively contributes or writes the blog on a consistent basis. Hey, we can do a little follow-on, and Brett can write a piece specifically on the topic that you missed. So I think that being said, we're gonna wrap this up today. So Phil, I know you have to carry on and get ready for your speech today. And Brett and I have to separate ourselves and not get as uncomfortably close here.
Awesome.
No, thank you so much for having me, guys. I appreciate it. And yes, definitely click below and download your copy of the guide. Think that teams, regardless of their size or makeup, will have something really great to take away from it. So really excited to hear your thoughts, and we are listening. So any thoughts, comments, suggestions, ways we can improve, would love to hear it and implement it.
All right.
Thanks again, guys.
Thanks, Phil. Brett and I are sitting uncomfortably close together.